Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Covenant Cast. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm Steven, and today we're talking about a lot of things, including Warhammer Champions, live streaming, how Zach manages his time, and many others.
I'm sure you've been wondering.
So stay tuned. Well, here's an important thing to know. Zach has not had coffee.
That is worth noting.
Why don't you tell us about that,
Man, I'm just giggly. So, also worth noting, this is the second, maybe third time we've tried to intro this podcast. We're trying to get away from using the word...
Our recorder just died.
Oh, no, I thought it died again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the recorder died, so we had to restart. And we're very much trying not to kick off out of the intro with the word all right.
All right, yeah,
and
it
then
seems
Steven
overdone.
started it with all right, and so I made fun of him, and then here we are. So, nonetheless,
tale as old as time,
this morning
really.
I woke up, and the first thing I thought after a full night's rest is, man, I need some coffee. And I thought to myself, I should probably not have coffee today, just to make sure that I'm not addicted.
That's right. What would you fill in the blank of coffee with if you could have anything that you're most looking forward to when you wake up?
I mean, pretty
Sweet embrace of death.
All right.
Those are basically our options, right?
Yeah, I mean, like,
coffee
I think
or
the thing about it is, like...
fatalist.
I'm not sure if my thinking about coffee was, like, I just really enjoy my morning routine and having a hot coffee, or if it's, like, I just got a lot of rest, yet I still feel like I need more energy.
Yeah.
Because I've been living on, like, a caffeine high for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that...
It's a drug.
It was me looking forward to coffee and not me needing to get back to that zone.
Let me lay this on you. I had a conversation with my mom, about this probably a couple of years ago when I first started drinking coffee in the morning. And I finally, I'd played with it, and I didn't want to like commit to the morning cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And I still, and this is apparently what the scientists tell you, you're supposed to wait at least an hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up to have it, so that your body's natural wake-up routine is not then reliant on the kick from the beans.
Yeah, because that would be bad. What happens if you run out of coffee?
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
You can't wake up.
We've seen a Space Ghost episode. It really covers it. It's called Snatch. You should check it out.
You know what? I've seen that episode.
Yeah, it really just covers it in full detail.
So speaking of your mom...
I haven't spoken of her yet. What she said...
Oh, yeah. I thought you already said the thing, which is you should wait.
Was that... No, that's what the scientist said. She's far from a scientist.
Yeah.
She said that she falls asleep thinking positively about her morning cup of coffee.
Man, that's next level.
Yeah.
That is
Did
next
you
level.
say next 11?
Yeah, man.
What are you on Snapchat? What are you, 15?
You know I'm on Snapchat. At Zach Bun. Just kidding. I'm not really on Snapchat anymore.
You get some next level snaps.
Next level. I don't know where that comes from. My brothers say that. We make fun of it. So if you say next level, I'm sorry.
Well, with you not having drank coffee and this being a weird day anyway, and everything going on, it's going to be a weird podcast, so strap in, everybody out there listening.
That's right.
We hope it works out.
Speaking of your mother, I know this now because of the false start intro we had earlier on the podcast.
Sure.
You spent some time with the family this weekend. What happened there?
I did. I went up to the lake. It's in Bella Vista, and my grandmother's lived up there since I can remember.
And for those not from the area, that's in Arkansas?
It's in Arkansas, yes. It's probably about 20 minutes from the border, 30 minutes, an hour. I don't know.
Some amount of time.
Some amount of time from the border. Yeah, a lot of great memories up there. But this is, we got the family together. My cousin Scott was coming in from California, and his girlfriend Celia, who's from the UK, which is just pleasant to be around.
That's awesome.
I love having an accent around. Anyway, so everyone was getting together, and this was the first time that all of the kid groups were cooking for the entire crew.
So this is you and your wife, Jonathan and his wife, and Scott and Celia. Lady friend.
And we did all the dinners, and it was cool, because this is the first time that I've cooked for that many people. Shannon and I put together an entire thing. We had like 4 or 5 or 6 different items, and I did like the Indian food things. It was kind of the culmination of a lot of the things that I've learned over the past year about Indian food. But it got hot. I can understand the Hell's Kitchen thing, the Gordon Ramsay appeal. Like it's real. It's
like the literal temperature or like the pressure to get it all done?
All of it. And they compound on each other. So it's like you have all of that going on, and then there's actual heat from the oven and the burners, and you got to make sure all these things are cooking, and this thing hasn't cooked yet, and then you're forgetting these things. And you got to chop that, and you got to put that in, you got to make it time, you got to keep that warm, the whole thing. So it was awesome, but it was definitely worth it. It was kind of one of those run run a race and then feel really good at the finish line.
Yeah, and which night was that of yours?
That was Friday night.
I feel like I wouldn't want to go last on that race.
Last is hard. Jonathan went last.
Because
like pulled it off
finishing
really
the weekend?
He did a nice couscous dish with some chicken. It was a North African meal.
Of course he did.
Yeah, really nice.
Of course he did.
And then Scott and Celia did an Italian thing with walnuts and parsley and kale. Was it kale? It was the most California thing I've ever seen.
I was going to say, those three words make me think he's definitely from California.
Well, it was straight up delicious. Apparently, it's a pretty classic kind of rustic Italian meal over, of course, pasta. It was delicious.
Yeah, because it's Italian. What up?
That's right. What about you? Oh, hey, you went to the Masters, our Masters. The last Covenant Masters draft event was this past weekend. You went to that. We had Monk in from Monk's Gaming Battlefield. That was really cool.
It was awesome to meet him.
And then there's also a store championship on that Sunday. So actually a lot of things for Destiny happening. And of course, it is a podcast and you are on a camera. So we should give you the opportunity to talk about Star Wars Destiny, your one true love.
What are we, like a good 5 minutes in? So my one true love. That's right. Don't tell my fiance. Yeah, I played. I love it.
A thrilling recap. Okay, well, I can read the tea leaves.
I was trying to make a joke, and man, I couldn't hold it. I was trying to hold it straight there. Anyways, it was a great weekend. So we did this thing, and I want to clarify. You said the last Covenant Masters. A lot of people, when they found that out in person on Saturday, thought that meant that that was our last qualifier for the Masters.
Right.
Which is not true.
I always say draft, but words, you know.
Yeah, well, if you say it's our last draft
out.
qualifier, then people who assumed it was all draft before are just kind of assuming that it's over. But it was our last time that one of the qualifiers was a draft before doing we're doing Standard in October, Sealed in November, and Trilogies in December, which I'm really looking forward to. But I played at Masters, and it went a lot better than it did last time. The first Masters, I made top 6, and I qualified. The second Masters was the first one with Way of the Force, and I got caned.
You bombed.
It was bad.
Which goes to show that you are not actually, I'm just going to say this because I think it's funny. You're not actually skilled at the game, you just memorize what's good.
Sure, you could say that, for sure. There is an argument to that, to be fair. But anyways, from all the way the Force, for whatever reason, whether it's my lack of skill or just the set itself, has been very difficult for me to draft. I've had a hard time of it. And part of that is I'm learning. I think that the characters in that set are just less prevalent and accessible than the previous set.
So they're harder to understand, or like?
No, it's like basically the odds of you seeing a character that you need to see, and then what happens to your deck when you do see one of those particular characters, it goes through the roof. So like Cassian, as an example, is like unbelievable pull because he's a low-cost yellow character, so you can run all 3 colors, and also he's incredible.
Yeah, I see.
And then there's like the Gungan, which is actually very good because it lets you run those 3-cost plots like long-term plan. If you get a Gungan long-term plan, it's just see you later.
Why was I not drafting? Well, as a grandma's. That's
anyways, but it went a lot better. I learned a lot in the time between the first and the second one, so I was happy. I was able to make the top 6 again. But then even in the top cut, didn't see a single character, and so then it's just bad news beats.
Well, that's just no good.
Yep.
What about Store Championship? How was that?
Store Championship was the next day, which was cool.
It was just a mill fest, right?
No, actually. So yes and no. I think there were only 4 mill decks out of the 28 players that played, but 2 of those made it to the finals.
So maybe pretty good.
And like my friend Matt was actually in the top 4 playing against Tim, my brother. And Tim was playing Mill. Matt was playing the Talzin Mando deck from the
and that's pretty aggro,
right?
That's
very
fast,
aggro.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know. I haven't gotten the story from Matt yet, or Tim. I haven't seen them since then. I wasn't watching that game. But apparently, it was a very close game, and I have a feeling that 1 or 2 different decisions at various points could have swung that game either direction. But Tim won, and then Shane, the guy that ended up winning the Store Championship, also was on Mill, so it was a Mill final.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, there are some things in life and in games that are just not fun. You might enjoy it, but I think we can objectively say there are some things that aren't fun.
I do not have fun playing against Mill.
I don't have fun playing against Burn, so let's just stop all of those things. And I played Choke, and nobody has fun playing against Choke.
No one has fun playing it. I don't even know if Choke has fun.
So maybe it's all just subjective.
As Choke, yeah, we'll see.
Maybe there is nothing out there that.
But yeah,
can be used.
It was good. We have 3 more qualifiers coming up. Also, it was really cool that we had a player qualify from Seattle.
Oh, he was better book that ticket in February.
Oh,
then,
he's coming back, but
awesome.
I think he was the first person. I think from that far, easily the furthest away.
Yeah,
I know. I'm trying to think. Chase, who got second at Destiny Weekend back in 2016. Mm-hmm. He qualified, so he's also from out of state. But other than that, it's been mostly Tulsa.
Seattle, that's great. Seattle's kind of a mecca of tabletop.
I will say there's been a ton of representation from other states, but I was really happy to see another state actually make the qualify. Great. So we'll see Seattle represented at the championship.
Man, I love it. I love it so much. Well, in other news, we've been, and it's somewhat relevant to Destiny, we've been experimenting with live streaming. And hopefully some of you guys listening have caught those efforts. It's certainly the start of something bigger, I think. Ultimately, it's been on the periphery for a long time, and everybody's question about live streaming has always been like, well, how do you ultimately capitalize on that amount of effort and money that you have to spend to get a rig going, and you got to get your dedicated internet, and we got fiber here now in the store, which is a big deal. Right? That's super helpful. Although it's not the fiber that I dreamed it would be, but that's a story for a different podcast. So that helps, and then there's a lot of this time, right? It's time we could be producing, actually recording a video that goes up on YouTube, a produced thing that's there forever and is doing a lot of work for us.
Well, I think another important advancement is that you can now live stream to YouTube and Facebook.
Yes.
Because before, we used to have a live stream in our store every day, basically, and we just put games on that people were playing or whatever, and it was fine. But we're live streaming to Twitch. And so now it's not even let's just live stream a random thing we otherwise wouldn't have done, as much as we did a live stream of our Warhammer Champions playthrough. Yep. We've done live streams of Keyforge games.
Gen Con.
That's
when it really started to kick, and that's when we felt the energy and this is. I think for me, live streaming switched over a little bit, and it became more about that really intimate connection with the audience and that engagement that's going on, which is way more important than what you're showing on camera ultimately. Sure. And I know that has a lot to do with it, but it's that kind of back and forth, that instant accessibility between an audience and a creator that is awesome. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of energy there. Sure. It feels really cool.
It's the same with we could technically, and we might well do this, but we could do this show live.
Yeah.
And then the questions we're answering could be.
And then the recorder could die live, and then
questions.
Right? Who knows? Multiple takes.
So we'll see where that goes. But I'm really excited about it because I think one other thing I really love about live streams is the community that gets formed in the comments.
Yeah.
Where comments on YouTube are notoriously YouTube comments, and if you're watching a video on Facebook, there's comments on Facebook, and we've seen that with you recently in my family.
Man, isn't there?
That's a different story. But
it's amazing what you'll say when there's no accountability and when it takes no effort. That's not the best of humanity at that moment in human space.
I thought you were talking about what I was just saying. I was like, all right, I'll think about that.
You're very accountable. You're on a podcast. I'm sitting here right here. I can strangle you if I wanted to.
The reality of when people are watching something at the same time together, and they can actually engage with each other. So everyone that listens to our show every week, if it was possible for them to actually talk to each other while they're listening to the show, that's a pretty cool thing that live stream offers.
Guys?
Yeah.
Look at these guys hosting this podcast. Wrong.
Oh, man.
Hate them.
Also have a few other things going on here.
Before you do, Warhammer Champions is most important because we just talked about live streaming it. So let's get those perked ears continually.
We talked about the game last week. And I think this game is incredibly good.
It's the sleeper hit of the summer.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm very much looking forward to it. And I actually think, Keyforge has also been a big thing that was announced and people are talking about. We're talking a lot about doing a lot of live streams and stuff. But to me, what I'm realizing is that we've always loved Draft and Sealed. That's why we did the Covenant Master series, so focused on draft with Destiny. But what Keyforge is forcing, which is people to play a game like that, not in a optimized, completely min-maxed, the deck plays itself kind of way.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Is really reigniting the way I'm even approaching games, I don't know. what
I wrote it down. I was gonna call it. Yeah, fun.
It's really fun.
It's reigniting an idea about let's play a game to have fun, not to like have the best thing possible.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at Warhammer Champions and like I'm approaching it not even at all from a like I need to optimize and tweak and max this out versus like I'm just looking at the 10 packs of cards we opened. It's like, this thing's really cool and I want to put it in my deck. And I'm sure over time the deck will get better. It naturally does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm not looking to play that game like I've played most games in the past.
Right.
And that's pretty cool. And I think at least for me, it's going to be a good game for that.
Yeah, it feels like that to me too. Warhammer Champions, it's almost like Q4 just kind of bringing this new thing, which is cool. But it's, there's a lot that comes with this new format and working through that. And then Warhammer Champions providing what I would consider a very optimized or honed version of something that's very familiar. So like that's a traditional kind of trading card game. You're building your deck, you have a faction, and then the gameplay is really intuitive, innovative. And so I like having one that's just like what I feel maybe a very refined version of what I have always wanted and enjoyed, and then want a brand new entry into the gaming space. And it remains to be seen for the other ones too. God Tier I'm waiting for too. It just isn't in my hands, so it's not nearly as cool.
It's kind of further
And
away.
Transformers, we've got to get anything other than those Autobot starters. This is the most boring thing on earth. We no more. Like
I agree.
it's like, what do you want
totally
to?
agree.
Do you want to stream another Autobots v Autobots game? It's like no, we don't want to, and nobody wants to see it.
Yeah.
So
well, luckily that game has a set coming out.
That's right.
In the not so distant future.
And that's worth saying that Champions now we have launched a subscription for it. The thing that's phenomenal about Champions too is it's like $76 for a booster box, which is great. We're doing it at minimum advertised price with free shipping on those subscriptions. So it's a really great. So what we're doing, for instance, Zach, Jonathan, Robert, and I, Zach's got a subscription. He's going to get one box.
I still can't believe you and John are on the factions you're on.
Well, we'll probably switch. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about it. Well, I kind of did. I whispered a little bit into his ear.
Like, I feel like
it.
the Stacky Orcs is just like John's.
I know, but we may
card.
have gotten him all wrong. I don't know.
Versus
He's always
Order?
changing. Yeah, well, he's a married man with a dog now. I mean, Order is a
Order is the name of the game.
significant part, but he also should be very familiar with Destruction in that context as well.
Yeah.
But the four of us are going to get one box whenever the set comes out.
It's 24 packs.
Yes, 24 packs. Now, the subscription, the first thing sent through that subscription is going to be a reprint of the first set because it evaporated primarily through Games Workshop stores. So our presumption is that, first of all, most of you hearing this right now didn't even know Warhammer Champions existed, which was our case. And then secondarily, if you are now finding out about it, you didn't get enough because you didn't know it existed, or you wanted more but you couldn't get more. So the first thing we're sending through the subscription is a first set reprint. So that first set, we'll get a booster box of it. We'll split it up. We'll probably we may do some little drafties, some little games with it. But we're going to distribute the four factions to the four people. They have all claimed a faction.
Yep.
Robert's Death, your Chaos. I'm currently Destruction, Jonathan's Order. But that could flip.
I have a strong feeling. That's the funny part about this, though, is that if we keep doing the system, they can flip whenever we want.
That's right. We can just pass all the cards in the collection.
It's not like there's like a big ownership piece of this.
Maybe we'll draft the neutrals or something
That's
afterwards.
what I was thinking about. Yeah.
But then everybody will have their stack of cards, and some will inherently be better than others. Like your stack might be stronger in general than mine.
Someone also might just
Who
get more
cares?
cards.
Who cares, right?
It doesn't matter.
Isn't that the thing? And so we'll tweak our decks, and then if Zach gets some big dragon thing, and I have a card that can hurt the dragon thing, I'll start tacking it in with a very limited card pool. And we'll probably do that until the next set. Second set's in like November, and we'll get another box, and it's great. And it's going to cost us, like $20 each to get in on this.
And I think that's what I'm kind of getting renewed in. And I'm very interested in us exploring even locally, which is like formats of the game that have nothing, that aren't just the standard own everything game.
Yeah.
Because locally, we had a group of Destiny players who actually, when this last set came out, they each bought one box.
Nice.
And then they were opening, I think, 6 packs a week.
I love that escalation stuff.
So there was basically like we have the rival starter, and then every week we come together, we open 6 more packs to see what we all got, and then we play games that week, and then next week we're going to open 6 more. But that style of even like Warhammer Champions, right? Imagine, I think the starters they put out for that game are really great. They come with a booster pack, but they also come with a fully legal deck, which I'm not used to from the other games that we've been selling. and playing is like the idea of you have a deck and then you get one pack, and then it's like, I mean, just imagine one pack a week even.
It's great.
It's like, all right,
It's everything I've ever
you get your one
wanted.
pack, you get to make some little adjustments, and slowly over 12, 18 weeks, your deck evolves.
That's what we experienced when we first fell in love with the hobby, right? Like we were going into the
how we
movie
played.
barn and getting 2 packs because we just mowed grandma's lawn.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, I just pulled a Boba Fett. I can build a Boba Fett deck now. This is insane. That's unbelievable. And then we'd have to trade with each other because we didn't have a choice.
That's right.
So it's really just about like going back to roots, going back to basics. And honestly, I feel like that's what this Gen Con represented for me, was that,
Your roots.
well, I think it's about going a little bit backwards and kind of internal into the industry at this point, rather than continuing to expand upward and outward.
A little introspective.
It felt like the entropy of continuing to grow and grow and grow, and new games and new formats and innovations has finally caught up. And like what now is happening is a little bit of a retraction and a reevaluation of why everybody's here in the first place, and what games are best serving the ultimate ends of tabletop as a whole.
And I think that
Keyforge,
hits
great
it on the
example,
head, right? Where it's like, why are you playing games, right? And I think for most people, they are fun,
Hopefully.
and it is an enjoyable activity to share with people.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes it fun. But like, if you lose that, like if it starts becoming a job, or it starts becoming like too serious, then...
Or even kind of a misplaced self-realization mechanism. And for some, it's great, and that can be handled well. For others, it's just kind of like it's almost misplaced value in that way, where it's like, don't you see, it doesn't actually matter if you do well in this tournament or not. Like, you've missed the 6 rounds of new friends that you could have been making. And I think that's an important thing to not lose sight of.
Absolutely. So anything else on that? I have a few more notes before we actually dive into the questions.
Basically, deciding between OBS and Wirecast on the live streaming.
We've been doing tons of live streaming.
Anybody who's dealt with this medium, it's a jungle.
I get a sense that like part of what makes it so hard is the setup. Everything is dependent on like your particular case, which is like the cameras you're using, the computer you're using, the equipment you're using to capture audio,
frame rate,
your internet
downsampling,
speeds, the platform you're going to. So like it's not like a standardized thing.
Yeah, it's very specific.
And so right now, you think about things like even like blogging, and it's like that's become pretty standard. There's not a lot of questions on how to blog, but there was for a long time. It's like, do I start I don't remember what those various journal websites were, or WordPress,
Zanga? Look it up.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Well, I think that we should dive in to. Are we ready for questions?
I have 2 more things.
I feel like there was one other thing.
It's not on your list. It's on my list at least.
Oh.
Just this morning.
Go ahead.
I see something on your list. Just this morning, FFG posted about L5R. I don't know if you caught that announcement or not.
Not at all.
But basically, they're saying, hey, the Scorpion Clan packs come in October, because they haven't announced the next cycle of packs.
Right.
And then...
You know when FFG does this, every time the communities are like, well, this is it, right? Ever since Netrunner and Star Wars LCG, anytime you have that eerie silence, it's just like, are they finally just calling it? Are they chopping this thing down?
But they're not. So here's what they're doing.
Good.
October is the clan pack for Scorpion. And then they said, I think like October 8th or 10th, they're announcing the next product. So they gave you a date for the announcement, which is funny.
Interesting.
But they basically said there's not that much to say about it right now, other than it's going to be a totally new type of product. It's not a clan pack or a dynasty pack. So
oh my gosh.
Prepare yourselves.
Wait, seriously? Like a new...
Something. Totally new
So
product.
probably... Okay, so let's run it down. Not a pack.
Not a pack or
not
a clan pack.
A clan pack. Presumably not a deluxe expansion, or is that are they going back to deluxe expansions?
I thought the clan packs were deluxe expansions.
Well, they
basically.
kind of are, but they went to that smaller format. But it was the same amount of cards.
Maybe like a box release, or they did I could see this working with L5R. They did the campaigny thing with Netrunner.
Oh, like the terminal directive. Or please tell me that they're just busting out of that faction-specific expansion thing.
Well, that was the other thing they said, which is all 5 of the rest of the clan packs are going to be out by the end of next year.
Oh, wow.
So there's 6 clan packs in the next, 15 months.
Wow.
So it's a lot of cards. But I think
6
they're
packs,
recognizing
52
what
weeks.
We've recognized, which is like, and we know this because we played Thrones in first edition, and when we first got into Thrones, there were only 4 of the boxes out, and I played Targaryen. That was the last box they put out, or something,
Right,
or it was
right.
one of the last. And you're just at a huge deficit in card count. It's crazy. It's like, okay, yeah, 3 of your 8 clans have a bunch of extra cards, and the other ones
Yeah, it
don't.
doesn't work, does it?
So they're kind of shrouding it all in mystery. So we'll see more when they actually announce it. But there's things happening. I feel like for some reason, I don't know if it's because they own the license to L5R or because whatever it is. But
Could be the Horvath loves the game so much.
Sure.
Who knows? I mean, he was a long-time player.
They're deciding to do things just off the wall with L5R, which I'm not against, but I'm just very curious to see the general reaction and input.
Okay, well, tell me this. Let's just let's get into the academic side of this podcast.
All right, here we
for
are.
a second. Let's put on our hats. We need a little chime or a little soundtrack that we can run when it's like
we need a soundboard.
We're about to be more pretentious than usual.
Than average, which is high.
Is this the last experimentation with the competitive LCG format to determine whether or not it will ever get made again in the future for a future license? Is L5R essentially like, if we can eventually crack the puzzle and make it work for L5R, we can take other licenses and properties into this in the future and do the LCG thing?
So I think it's important to just kind of frame it for everyone that's listening or watching that maybe hasn't been watching every episode of this as we've been talking about these games.
We've been talking about competitive LCGs.
And basically the fundamental concept or question that we've posed several times is, can competitive LCGs quote unquote work?
In the long term,
be sustainable and successful in the long run?
Beyond like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and the problem that the LCGs, there's a lot of problems they face, which is there's usually a lot of excitement up front. People get in, and then at some point, like 2 things happen at somewhere between 1 to 3 years of a game being out, which is there's enough product that new product coming out isn't enough new product to really change the game, so that all your players that have been playing for 3 years kind of get bored at some point.
Right, you get like 2 to 3 new cards depending on your faction, and it's hard to make them relevant every pack.
And early on, you're still learning the game, and you're still learning the shape of things, but at some point, there's a mass of cards that basically shapes it for you, and one new pack isn't enough to dramatically change that. So you lose all the like new discovery elements of the game.
And in fact, it feels almost like you just have to kind of keep grinding to keep up, because you don't want to fall behind now that you have this mass of cards.
And now that you've learned everything you've learned, you want to kind of stay on top of it. But then the other thing that happens is, and we've seen this time and again, which is you get about 2 years into an LCG, someone is now interested in playing the game, and they have 2 years of things they have to buy and learn and experience. And instead of it being like a boon, it's a weight, right? Which is like, like I've said, we've seen it a lot. Someone comes in, they want to learn how to play the Thrones LCG. Thrones is popular, it's a TV show. I've heard about this card game people are talking about. And then it's like, okay, well, you're going to need to buy $100 in core sets, and then you're going to need to buy probably $150, $200 in other stuff.
Yeah.
Open it all, organize it all, sort it all, build a deck when you don't even know how to play. Then you can play to learn what you want to do anyway.
Yep.
And it's like just this big barrier, whereas up front, when everyone's learning and there's a lot less product, it's a lot easier. And there's a lot of solutions. We've seen the pre-constructed decks for Thrones coming out.
I want to talk about those because we've now seen, other versions of this, and we've seen this throughout our playing history in various games. But one of the most relevant examples is Warhammer Champions. They have their 4 faction starters. Now, here's the thing, though, with those Thrones starter decks, which is, again, a great example of starting to get in the right direction. Can those actually replace a core set purchase?
So I personally think that those are way better started than the starters they did.
Right, except they don't have the rules, they don't have the tokens, and their games are always like tokened out to the max.
But we saw that they did a Lord of the Rings Deluxe starter with the release of their digital version, and it actually, instead of coming with the normal core set components, it came with all the rules and cardboard and stuff, but instead it came with 2 pre-built decks.
Yeah.
In the box.
Yeah.
So you might have a $30, here's 2 houses, it's Stark versus Lannister with your tokens and rulebook thing. But like the idea of, because you need power tokens essentially, and maybe some other fiddly tokens, but like people have tokens. They have dice, they have markers, they have whatever. But lowering that barrier of entry to $15, you're immediately playing. I think that's part of what makes Keyforge so great, is that the barrier of entry is always $10. And with Thrones, it's $15 to get in, but you still are behind. Right.
I mean, that's the thing, is you still are looking back and being like, well, if I really like this, what's honestly my next step? Do I buy 1 pack here and then 1 pack there and slowly work on because that's what you would have to do, is slowly kind of improve your decks over time.
But
and you better hope you like the theme of the starter, because
Otherwise,
really
you're
got to stick in there.
Really pinch. But that's where, like, asking the question, with L5R or Thrones, it's like, is this the last shot at this working kind of a thing? Because I just think what we've seen is over time, it's not sustainable. Like the system as it is built, and players are starting to recognize too, where it's like there's not enough excitement up front, and then there's this glory phase from like 3 months in to about 15 months in, and then the weight starts to take over, and people start to fall out, and it gets harder for new players to come in, and then slowly over time, the game just kind of...
Yeah, eventually sales do not outweigh cost.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So I don't know. I know they have a vested interest in making L5R work. They own that license. They have an RPG that they're doing. Down the line.
You get the sense they feel passionately about that license too, don't you?
Yeah, they actually care about it. Yeah. They want to see that universe go on and that game succeed. So I'll be really, we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good... I think L5R players should just get ready, because it seems like what's happening is, and you see it in the Thrones decks too, there's a lot of ideas that have been unchained, and now they're all just
going
trying
crazy.
To work.
Yeah.
And so that is both exciting. To me as an L5R player, I'd actually be very excited to know that it's not going to be the same song and dance of the packs eventually roll out to the game failing.
But that can also be like...
Yeah, it can be scary.
Questionable.
Which is why you should get a subscription. Did I do that right?
Yeah,
Am I marketing now?
Yeah, and then 2 last little things for me to mention. One is, before we get into the actual questions, John Scraggin with Wolf Squad Gaming sent us a very nice letter and some stickers.
Oh, cool.
Thank you very much for that. We appreciate you sending the letter and being
What John
grateful.
have to say? He didn't read it to me, not yet at least. You're probably reading it in the meeting.
I didn't,
I guess.
Didn't read it to you yet. It's just thanking us for doing the cast and all the stuff that we do and inspiring them to create content. So keep creating content. It's awesome to have people thanking us for doing what we do and being inspired by it. So
happy to
cheers to that, and thank you. And then, of course, the last note for me, I saw you wrote the word anniversary down.
Yeah, I did. I wanted to make a note of that because I know that I'm getting a sweet lunch on Friday. So that's where my mind is.
That's right. Steven
Which is today.
Has officially been, as of last Friday, working at Covenant for 9 years, which is a significant portion of time.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's really cool. It's almost 10 years.
We watched if you really have time and you're listening or watching this.
Officially on payroll for 9 years.
Yeah, you've been here since like 2007. So officially as an employee for 9 years. But we pulled up what was the video called?
Team Covenant versus Snowmageddon.
It's Steven back when all of our inventory, and he was our lone employee, was at his house. And there's a big snowstorm, and he's making sure orders get out for the day, but it's hilarious.
It's just, it's sticky to the max.
If you watch it, please comment in this video and let me know that you watched it, because I think it's a hilarious video.
That would be...
We'll also see, because it'll go from like 8 to 10 views if people actually watch it. Anyways, let's dive in. If you aren't familiar with the Covenant Cast, you can use the hashtag AskCovenant on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we answer those questions right here on the show every week.
And we love doing it.
I guess I'm not supposed to say every week. Most weeks.
Whenever we record casts.
Whenever we decide to podcast. First question from Jeff Smith. While games like Android Netrunner, Infiltration, and Mainframe have made us focus on the hacking shenanigans in Cyberpunk, I've always felt that the prototypical stories of the Android universe are in fact detective stories.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the Android board game is all about, and also why I enjoyed the novel Freefall so much. Also, let's not forget that this is the premise of the Terminal Directive Android Netrunner campaign expansion. So, if they ever made an investigative deductive board game like Letters from Whitechapel or Fury of Dracula, but set in the Android universe, that would be absolutely fabulous and quite fitting, I believe.
I totally agree with that.
I was expecting a question.
Well, see, but this, you may as well throw the softball up right now. It's like, if Android's about investigating, and they have the Android license, and they have a game like Arkham Horror, the LCG, what's to stop you? Right?
I mean, you could essentially have every character gets to be...
Switch your runners to investigators, or vice versa.
Switch the bad guy things to different corps.
That's it, man.
And you know what? You have a bunch of art.
You've got all the art.
Already done.
You've got it all. Why don't we can we just do this, FFG? Are you listening?
I actually, that's a great idea. I have not even considered that.
Of course. And you have these great hard-boiled scenarios coming out and all the action. You have your corporations or essentially your doom counters are stacking up. They're finding you, they're tracing you, they're tagging you.
Every one of those scenarios is at a different city. We're like you're at the headquarters of HB
Kicks
or
off
Genentech.
New Angeles is the core set experience. The first cycle, you're running through the streets, meeting all these crazy personalities.
That's actually an incredible idea. Hashtag Fantasy Flight Games. Listen to this.
They can just do that in like a month, right?
I think that's about how long it takes to design, develop, test, print, and distribute a game. Yeah.
You got the art, though. You got most of the art.
Okay, you skipped one step.
Most of the art.
Yeah, that's right. Make it 3 weeks.
Hey, and speaking of art, Warhammer Champions, I hate to keep harping on it. I don't actually.
And we're back.
I'm in love with it. It's the game I never knew I loved. That art, when I originally saw it, was like, it's old. But now I actually love it. It's like a blanket. It's like going home. It's like going home and sleeping in your old bed.
That needs to be quoted on the Instagram things where people put the quote over it. So there needs to be a picture of you like looking off in the distance saying, "Warhammer Champions is like a blanket."
It's like a blanket.
That's amazing.
No, it's like your favorite blanket from your childhood home. It's like it might not be the warmest blanket whenever you first take it off.
But it's your blanket.
But it's so familiar and it's so comforting. And it's just like, no, this actually feels nice.
I definitely understand that. It's grown on me as well, just in terms of it's like, it feels old, but like, that's kind of fine.
And it's epic.
Yeah, it is epic.
If you actually look at the art, it's epic. I know you're busy reading the text.
Yeah, here we go.
Power gamer.
Yeah.
Got him.
Next question from Ryan P. says, "Hi, thank you for the very enjoyable content. I have a question. How long does it normally take you to design, produce, and ship tokens? In other words, when do you expect your Keyforge tokens to be available? ? By release? ?
That is certainly the intent. I'll tell you as the...
Here's what I want to tell you about Keyforge and tokens.
It's hard to keep it under wraps.
We are currently working on a compatible version of tokens for that game.
Specifically one of us.
I can see Jonathan over there doing it right now. And I will say, and I know we talk about from time to time our tokens in big...
next big thing.
ways.
Is this the next iPhone, Zach?
This is not the next iPhone. The iPhone was revolutionary and it changed the way we live day to day. This is not going to do that. However, what I will say is...
You don't work in marketing.
Is that this is perhaps the coolest thing I've ever seen us do.
Post-Dynasty rings.
Post-Dynasty rings, yeah. But Dynasty rings aren't even like on the same stage. So I'm very... excited and interested to see what everyone listening, watching that's going to play Keyforge thinks about the things that we're developing right now. But I will say that it's definitely like just the coolest thing it may be one of the coolest things we've just ever done, period. So I'm very excited to see it. And I also think you'll be seeing that sooner than you would expect to see it.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Definitely. If it's not by release, I
will say if it's by release, it's late.
Well, yeah, there's no secret to this, right? Like we're trying to get them out as quickly as we can and it's especially true because Keyforge is a unique game in a lot of ways, of course, but it's particularly unique because the starter doesn't really need to exist. It's just you grab a deck and you need tokens, and so like we want to get our tokens on the market.
You're getting the starter for tokens and 2 decks that everyone's going to have that gets the starter. So, ideally we get to the point where you can buy however many decks you want and grab our tokens and be off to the races.
And then you're done. It's that easy. F.E. Brinkley at FB. Cool.
On the Tweetsville.
Is this what Twitter looks like?
That is what
I'm sorry, let me scroll down to 2008.
You just dated yourself. 2008. Get out of here.
Is Jack still working there? Did I follow Jack? F.E. Brinkley at Team Covenant. I knew I'd have more to say. So, great. I do an Arkham podcast. I guess we probably were interacting with her.
Yes,
her. Looks like a her. Him or her.
If you look, it says at Team Covenant as the beginning, which usually means that she hit reply.
Oh,
to something we said.
Wow, you guys have your own language there over on the Twitter. I do an Arkham podcast, Drawn to the Flame, which is great. So I'm interested to see your learning series. I am too. As for Ask Covenant, in an ideal world, what would organized play for a cooperative LCG look like? What would you love to see at an Arkham event? Thank you so much for this question, Effie. I apologize for a tremendous amount of what would you call what that was? Not discussion, nonsense, before we actually got to answering it.
You can always call it nonsense.
What would organized play for a cooperative LCG look like? Let's start there first.
Well, I do want to say I think that this is actually a dramatically underserved community.
Tremendously
both
underserved.
Arkham and just cooperative games in general. And if we had the answer, which we're working on, but the answer to this, I think, is a fundamentally big deal because most games in tabletop gaming are not one-on-one competitive games. So
in terms of volume, number of titles.
yeah, I mean, like this week, total games played in the world on the tabletop. Most of those games that get played are not the.
Do you think so?
I definitely.
What about
think
Go?
so.
What about chess? What about? I mean, you can't say that.
I don't know. Think about like all the board games in the world. Like,
I'll bet there's more games of chess being played in a day than all other board games. Is that true?
I can't.
I would say Go.
Go and chess, between Go and
Anyways,
chess.
my point is that in the tabletop game industry specifically, so excluding like all those classic
Traditional
games and
games, we
whatever,
might call them, yeah.
But like the kind of tabletop gaming we're talking about, this niche, right? Most of the games aren't Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, and those are big money-making games. But like in general, like the number of people just casually playing Catan or playing down the line is huge. So finding a way to support organized play for those kind of games, I think,
Just anything that isn't one-on-one, head-to-head, I need to do a tournament. Because we've done Catan tournaments too, and it's like, it's fine, ultimately.
it was solid.
It's harder. So in a cooperative LCG, or in a cooperative game, really, the biggest questions that come up in terms of organized play is, are there going to be winners and losers? Are there going to be prizes associated with winning or losing? And if both of those questions are true, which in traditional organized play settings, they are always true, how are we going to determine who's winning? Because we're cooperating.
Sure.
So that has traditionally been the roadblock, I think, in like, well, we can't just host a tournament because how do we decide who wins? We can offer prizes, but how do we determine who gets them? So it's like this malfunctioning of trying to fit square peg in circular hole kind of thinking, right? And so we need to design a new understanding, a new system for what cooperative players want from organized play, and that starts with saying, why are people playing cooperative games in the first place? What are they enjoying about that experience, and how can we make that experience better? And then the best question for the LGS or any kind of like community organizer to ask, are people willing to pay for that experience?
Sure.
Because if that's not true, then you as a game store in the traditional sense are not going to be doing it. And I think that's the puzzle that most people haven't tried or are interested in solving when they can just run a Magic tournament.
I mean, the thing to me that's kind of crazy about it, though, is that we've seen with the Fellowship event for Lord of the Rings, and then I forget the name of the Arkham one.
Knights, or whatever that was.
I forget what their
invocation event.
It was
invocation event, yeah.
We've seen, at least for us, tremendous success in terms of getting people to come to the store. Now, those events are particularly like spicy because they give you like a playmat for showing up and like an alt art card or whatever. But like I don't think it's that complex. And I think part of it is, do we even need to have something? And maybe you do, but for winning,
no.
As much as it's like achievement based, where it's like for participating you get this thing, for accomplishing this thing in the store you get whatever it is you get. But I mean, even just from my gauge of like the Arkham novel books, it's like the demand for full bleed alt art investigators for Arkham in particular is like through the roof.
Yeah.
So much so
it's easy to provide.
that those books just go away.
Yeah.
And I'm not like questioning the value of the book itself, but like I know
But people aren't there for the books.
I know a lot of people are there for those cards. So anyways, for me, it's like, I think I would start, if I were building an Arkham Horror organized play effort, I would have some kind of, I don't know why they're not getting a quarterly kit from FFG as an example, where there could be a league and anyone that participates is going to get this investigator, and then anyone that plays at least this many games in the store gets the next thing, and so on. And so it's less like, did you win or not, and more participation involvement based, because there's tremendous value in getting people out and about and playing the games around, because then other people that are interested have somewhere to go with it. People happen to see it.
A lot of discovery.
This community gets built, right? Like, it's pretty cool. But another challenge with cooperative games is that one of the best things about a competitive game is you show up to a 20-person event and you know you're going to play 6 games against 6 very different opponents, different decks. You're going to see a whole bunch of cards you don't normally see. With a cooperative game, though, I feel like a lot of players tend to play with the same players. Mm-hmm. And your crew is who you kind of want to play with.
Right.
So you have this weird balance of like, if you and your 2 friends show up and there's one person you don't know, what if you guys don't get along? What if they want to play differently? What if they take it more seriously than you do? And so like there's some challenges on that front too, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So finishing off, what would you love to see at an Arkham event? I think you've covered most everything on your end. I would, and this speaks to the challenges that you're talking about, but I would love to see an event that even for, like something that I've been thinking about is an act or an agenda, basically kind of like flip, that causes you to essentially switch places with somebody at a different table. It's like an interdimensional or a time traveling kind
really
of
wild
shtick, because they might be in the future of where your group is, or in the past to where your group is. And so like if randomly you get ported over to another table and you're like, hey, I know that this werewolf's about to drop out, and you're like,
really cool.
And then you return to your group after like one set of actions or something.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you still get to play with the group, but it's also doing some mingling as well.
Yeah, I like to try to mix people up, but mixers, you know how those go down usually. It's just like, usually everybody's just miserable because you want to make your own decisions about who you're hanging out with.
Sure.
But in that instance, I think it could actually work. Yeah, it could be nice.
But yeah, and I think it's something just to kind of end on is this is something that we are actively having conversations about and looking both locally and potentially beyond that to address. So stay tuned. We'll see. We'll see what we figure out.
Question 4 from Trevor at tbets94. Is this also a Twitter? Yes. At Team Covenant,
yes,
as someone who also, I'll ask as Trevor to you, Zach.
All right.
Zach, as someone who also has a business and is also getting married, can you tell me your secrets on managing time?
I don't really have any secrets.
What are you, Zuck over here?
No.
Do you microdose? What do you do?
I wear hoodies and take a lot. I drink a lot of coffee. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you have a planner?
I used to. I don't anymore.
Can we get a nice like CEO quote here? Just a real quick, focus on
here's
what matters. Period. Put it on the wall.
Period. Get a picture. Can I do this in the picture? Black and white, please. No, I think for me, I don't think this is something I've mastered at all. I don't know that there is a secret. Right now I'm feeling like ever since March, Steven and I, we went to Gamma, which is like a trade show for retailers and distributors and publishers for tabletop. And then like the next week we went to Adepticon, which is a convention in Chicago, if you're not familiar, focused on miniature games. And then from there it just kind of spiraled out of control for the next like 6 months for me. Everything with wedding planning, moving, work, travel for personal and professional reasons for Worlds and X-Wing, and you go down the list. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm about to get married, and then after that, I don't have any travel planned for a while, and I'm intending to not do that because I need to like recuperate from this 6-month period of my life.
Here's the questions that I have for you. 1, do you have any particular habits about checking your email?
Yes, you're gonna drill down here.
I'm drilling.
I'm
listening to Gary Vee, man. I know.
I check my email when I get to work and before I leave, and then usually one time in the evening. But I actually have it turned off where like it doesn't even show the like red number on the email anymore.
Right.
And it doesn't auto check for my emails unless I go check it on my phone, because you can waste a lot of time just constantly checking your emails for the next thing that's coming up.
How often do you engage with social media personally? When it's just like you checking Facebook, Twitter, etc.?
Not often.
Not often?
I mean,
once a day, twice a day, 6 times a day? In the morning, first thing you wake up?
I check, not first thing usually, but I do check Twitter before I leave.
Oh, God.
But like, one of these guys. So I check Twitter. Twitter is like the way I get information from the world.
Yeah.
Which is like, I follow authors and writers and news and people that whatever.
Okay, I get that, yeah.
So like, that's just kind of how I like see what's going on. That's how I found out that the whole investigation thing was happening.
Oh, the
today,
Cohen,
right?
and the Manafort.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it because I don't watch TV. Well, I watch Netflix, I guess. But like, I don't watch like news ever. That's not even.
The morning shows, etc. Okay, and then third, tell me this. I want to know the following. If you have just finished dinner and your plate's there in front of you, what do you do with that plate? Do you clean it immediately? Do you put it in the dishwasher if you have one of those? Or do you essentially kind of stack things up and do it all at once?
What a question. So my practice on dishes is that I usually, as I'm done with dishes, I put them into the dishwasher. And then I don't ever have a pile.
Okay.
of dishes. So it's like, you eat dinner, and then whenever you're ready to put the dishes away, you rinse those off, wash them, put it in the dishwasher. When the dishwasher's full, you start them.
Run it.
And
then it first to post, basically has to empty the dishwasher
That's
when
right.
it's open.
Yeah.
All right. See, because that's something my whole life has been an exercise in
I'm curious where those
efficiency and
questions came
minimalism,
from.
right?
Yeah. What do you do? Do you
Well,
wait?
I've just noticed like there seems to be a number of archetypes, and I am of the archetype that tries to get everything possible that I can get done productive, like as soon as it's actionable. So like rather than, I won't set something down like on a table or on a counter and deal with it later. Like if I got mail, for instance, I grab it,
now.
I look at it all, I open what I need to do, I recycle whatever I need to recycle, I keep whatever I need to keep, file it if it needs to be filed or whatever. It's like not the 1950s, but whatever you do with mail these days.
So do I.
Mainly all of it
Right
just
to the
gets
trash,
recycled or thrown depending on the contents. And then move on to the next thing. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to cook dinner and I'm washing dishes while I'm going. And I feel like so many times where time seems to evaporate, it's essentially you're always having to catch up to the things that you basically delayed for the past 2 to 3 weeks.
Sure.
And so by the time you're dealing with 2 weeks ago, you're making the next 2 weeks even harder because now things that you normally would even be doing, you can't do because you got to deal with the old stuff.
Well, and I feel like, even your dishwasher example is funny because, like, technically waiting until they're all in a big pile and then committing time to just do all those at once
Could be more efficient.
could be more efficient.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, not ever having to deal with a giant pile of dishes I forget the book I was reading, but it was basically talking about how tightly or loosely coupled your systems are, which is like if your whole life is represented by piles of dishes, right? If that's kind of how you're doing it.
Go from one pile
If
to
you're
the
doing that
next
to
pile to the
laundry,
next
if you're doing
pile,
that to whatever, that might be more efficient, but it's also like in that system, when something goes wrong, you're way more tightly coupled.
Yeah, you
because
stack
like
up.
you can't just quickly do something, and you don't ever have the option to leave the dishes in the sink if you don't have time. Because like if you're out of dishes and they're all dirty, now you're
Right.
going to waste time hand washing dishes so that you can eat.
Yeah, before you can cook dinner. And
Before
then,
you can
and
do
now,
the thing.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
so you just,
I see that.
but
It cascades.
either system can work, right? And there's a certain amount of coupling that you can do, but it probably comes down to a balance across all the different, even checking emails and how often because that can be, I know a lot of people that just constantly check email. And it's like, the crazy part of that to me is the people emailing you then control your schedule.
Yeah.
Which is like if you're constantly, like an email as an example, that is where I have a pile. Because I know I have once a day at work where I'm going to clear professional emails specifically, and I'll check when I get home, all my personal emails. But that's the kind of system that I could leave unchecked for 4 days, and it wouldn't affect me. Outside of like, if I miss something really
something
important.
relevant.
But like if it's super important, I feel like someone's going to call me.
Yeah, definitely. Heaven forbid.
Even those I don't
phone
answer,
call.
you know
Gross.
what I mean?
Final question, Daniel. In order to get people into Guild Ball, I've painted teams for 3 other people.
You're a saint. You're a saint.
Where are you?
Yeah, if you're any good, hit Steven up.
Yeah, please.
He's had some trouble in Painter Paradise here.
My gosh. In my experience, the thought of having to paint a mini is terrifying to some people and the biggest deterrent from trying a game. You're right. Actually, putting a miniature together and then painting it is the biggest deterrent. I'm hoping that Steam Forged Games is going with Guild Ball and God Tier, where painting is not required, even at high-level events. Will get people to the table. I am almost certain they are. Then, if they love it enough, maybe they'll one day try to pick up that brush. So ask Kevin, if demand was high enough, would you consider having an in-house painter for your store? So when you sold a game like Legion or God Tier, you could go and, hey, we have a paint service for X dollars here too. Absolutely, but cost, demand, right? So if we have demand high enough, it would be a high demand. Just because you're thinking about hourly, what are you charging?
To hire a full-time painter.
Hire a full-time painter, and they have to be really good if they're going to be painting in store. Could it be a full-time job? So like, could a painter make $15 to $20 an hour just painting 40 hours a week? That'd probably be like, at a good level, I think some models are generally an hour-ish for really good painters.
I mean, I think in groups of units,
40
right? Like
models a
6
week?
stormtroopers kind of a thing is faster than 6 individual
Right.
things. But like you're looking at an hour to a model, so you'd have to charge we're doing the math here, $15 to $40 an hour just to break even on his time. But I was talking to Robert about this the other day about all the weird things that are involved in running a business that you don't expect. Because from a young age and looking back, it's funny that I used to do this. But like, you go to a concert And it's like, that it's like, hey, how many people can this arena fit? And your mom or dad's like, 10,000 people. And then you recognize that you paid $42 a ticket, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay,
Do 50 for easy math.
$50 times 10,000 seats, right? It's like, okay,
carry the zero,
$500,000, and then you start doing the math. It's like, man, they're making so much money. But then as a 10-year-old, you don't recognize all the various costs that go into running a business, whether it's taxes, accountants, lawyers, fees, utilities, workers' comp. You go down. It's just like this huge range of things. So like, the cost just to break even on a full-time painter you'd have to have a certain demand, you'd have to charge a certain price.
And that to be consistent work too, because that's something too, is like if you have spikes where for 2 months you have 40 to 50 hours a week, and then all the other months you have 10 hours a week, you don't get a full-time employee at that point, and then you got nothing.
Yeah, and I think this is why we come all the way back around, which is like God tier is doing models that are fully assembled, and you can paint them, but you don't have to.
And they have a nice color to them. They got a resin color.
Yep.
Negate.
And there's less models
faction.
than in a lot of miniatures games for that game. But I think this is exactly why games like X-Wing have been so tremendously successful, which is they totally remove the barrier of entry on painting and assembling a model. And because of that, they made it incredibly more accessible, and it's Star Wars. And it's an amazing game.
And it's a great game. And.
So like, the practice, like I don't know that there would ever be demand enough for us to really pursue this kind of a thing, practically speaking. But that's also just macro level what gets me excited about a game like Keyforge, which is it seems to be, even though card games have less barriers to entry, it seems to be removing the barriers of entries that card games have. And we'll see. We'll see if that pans out or not. But, if there was this weird, crazy, huge demand for painted models and that gets a bunch more people playing, definitely something to consider. But I think we would actually lean more towards just thinking it through. A community version of that, where it's like we already have some really great local painters like James, and we've been really wanting to get some good miniatures games in here to give a handful of our community members the ability to kind of lead in that. But like that's not enough to get people into, I have to buy 200 models that I have to assemble and what do you call it when you file them? But you're like, I forget what it's called.
They call it modeling.
Remove the mold lines,
all of it,
and green
it's
stuff.
Just put it in the modeling
all that
box,
stuff. But like once you can remove those barriers, I think there are a lot of people that would actually be interested in painting.
Yeah.
But like painting is hard enough, so we'll
art, Zach.
We'll see what happens.
It's impossible for many of us. All right, shall we ask the audience a question? We appreciate all of you listening so very much. I have something in mind, unless... do you have anything in mind?
I'm a blank slate.
I want to know about Champions. So, I guess I'll continue on my light theme of the podcast this week, which is a small obsession with Warhammer Champions right now.
Can I, just before you even ask your question, I want to mention, if this is coming from someone who has never, ever been a Warhammer person.
Yeah,
I have.
Correct.
That has never been a theme
100%
that has
true.
ever appealed to me. This game is so worth a try. I can't even stress how worth a try it is. If you haven't already seen, we did a live stream on Facebook.
We've got some videos coming too.
But we have some videos coming. So when our Learning Champions videos go up, just check that out. I mean, I think PlayFusion's really onto something, and they're doing some supremely cool stuff. So it is a weird game for me to say this about, right? Because of just how much I haven't been. It's one thing if it's Destiny or Star Wars or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, Zach likes it. But anyways, it's worth trying. It's so worth trying. I can't even describe how worth trying it is.
And that gets us to our question. I would love to know, before this podcast, had you heard about Warhammer Champions?
That's a great question.
And now that you've heard about it, what do you think? So thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, keep playing.